Inner Expeditions podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Inner Expeditions podcast. My name, of course, is Aaron Harvey. This is season 2, episode 12. And joining me today on the show is actually my dad. He's going to come in, John Harvey, and we're going to discuss all things parenting and watching your kids growing up and turning into adults and becoming parents of their own. So some really cool talks about that, as well as some stuff that my folks did when I was young. We packed up and went overseas for 5 years and lived in the UK. So we're going to talk about that a little bit and delve into what it's like to uproot and move overseas with your 2 sons for 5 years. On top of that, we'll sort of have some conversations about what it's like growing up and viewing your parents as equals and peers, I guess, as you become a parent yourself as well. So some pretty cool in-depth stuff there about sort of father-son and parental relationships as well. So hope you enjoy this one. Thanks for tuning in again. If it's your first time tuning in, welcome to the show. I really hope you enjoy what you're about to hear. But other than that, let's get into it. So, I mean, we've always had a pretty good relationship as father and son, and a lot of that reason why I wanted to get you on the show was just to talk about that relationship, and not only that, but parents in general and how watching us grow up, I guess, watching your kids grow up and make decisions of their own, and then leading into being parents of their own, looking at how they're raising your grandkids. And the decisions that we make compared to, the decisions that you guys made, and the era and the generational differences between parenting and how that kind of goes.
You're always excited when children come into your family, and Anne and I were lucky because we didn't necessarily want to have one of each or 2 of each, whatever came along was healthy and had all the bits it was supposed to have. We were happy with them. To have 2 boys was great, and it was nice to see them grow up. From day one, there's always a little bit of personality in a child right from the moment it's born, and it's interesting to see which way they turn with your guidance as they come along.
Yeah, it's been good. I always remember as a kid growing up, you learn to make your own decisions, and as you get older there's a decision making process all the way through your life. But I always remember from a fairly early age is getting good guidance from your mum without too much interference, and even keeping that personality of my own personality and not being discouraged from being me, and schooled, I guess, from that, and having to be a certain way. Is that you guys kind of really guided me into the person I am now without trying to mould me in your own image, or in an image that you thought you might have wanted me to have. It's always been pretty good.
You can't mould a child, you can guide them because they have a mind of their own, and you certainly have. And we encourage to get the best out of you and keep your personality on an even note, so that you can make sensible decisions when it's time to come. And if you have a liking to go one way or the other, be it in your work or sport or things like this, or just generally growing up and having respect, is something that we try to guide you in all your life. And I think we're fairly successful at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you probably never, some people, I guess, as far as if they've got successful parents, they might go down the same line. If they're a sportsman, a great sportsman or something like that, the kids might be more likely to follow in those footsteps because it's what they're used to and it's what they've seen their parents do, and it's just such a part of their family life, as well as financial benefits. But that's not always the case. There's added pressure, but I suppose for us it's hard to family businesses. You might grow up and take over the family business one day, or allow them to seek whichever direction they want to go in.
I think as you grow up, and particularly when you start getting to school, it's important to play team sports. It teaches you how to share, stops you being selfish. But at the same token, I was a tennis player, and I was keen for you guys to play tennis, which you decided you would do, and you were quite good at it. But you were good at it to the point you enjoyed it. You weren't good at it, whether you were too determined and you wanted to beat everybody around. It was more of a social thing, particularly when we went overseas, when you weren't quite in your teens and your brother was just in his teens, and it was very handy in a small community living overseas to be able to mix with the people who were in that individual sport, as well as you guys playing soccer, which is a bit different to AFL.
Yeah, I mean we can come back to that, because I guess for where we can start is when we were quite young. Mainly grew up in Perth, I suppose, as you were, working there and doing a few different jobs to get your family's life underway.
Yeah, I changed jobs, I think, when you were probably 6 or 7. I'd been in the National Bank for 23 and a half years, and I was a bit disenchanted with the way that I thought the bank was going at that time, and I needed a change, and someone made me an offer which I felt was too good to refuse, and that worked for a few years, and I enjoyed that period of time. And then we dissolved that partnership, and then I finished up. We bought the news agency in La Plaza Bentley, which once again gave us time, and it also enabled you boys to see what we did on a daily basis. And sometimes on the weekend you'd come across and you could work in the shop, and you were very popular in the shop because the customers liked to see us involve our children in the retail business we were in, and you were quite adept at counter jumping in those days, and a lot of people liked it, and I think you got some enjoyment out of it and probably pocket money as well.
Yeah, definitely. It did, and working on the tills definitely helped my maths at school.
Yeah, there's that about it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember spending a lot of time there, and we enjoyed it, and it was great because we could spend time with you, and it didn't feel like a chore because we were together. And I really liked the fact that you got us involved in your life while working. Instead of sort of being away, you've gone out on that limb to become self-employed to create a life for us, which was going well. Yet at the same time, keeping us as a family as well when we come and work and spend time with you after school.
Yeah, so when we settled in Perth, we stayed in a fairly similar area. We probably only moved 2 or 3 kilometres as we changed houses so that we didn't upset your schooling too much. You went to the same schools. You played your after-school sports with the same guys and girls all the time, and you could build friendships over that period of time. And we enjoyed being in that area where you guys could feel settled and make friendships with other kids who had similar interests to you.
Yeah, it was a pretty good part of the place to grow up, and back then it was pretty friendly. We could explore a fair bit, ride our bikes around the neighbourhood and get into all sorts of mischief. But that the fact that you and Mum were catering for us to be involved as a family was pretty good, I thought.
Yeah, we enjoyed that, and as I say, it's surprising how well you were accepted, and the customers looked forward to particularly printing out a lotto ticket for them, and knowing how to do that at the tender age of 9 or 10 blew the customers away. And whilst it didn't bring them in, they enjoyed the experience of coming into the shop, which was truly family orientated.
Yeah,
even to the point where one of the girls who worked for us there, Kelly Hill, she went on to study law, and now she's a lawyer in Perth, and she was from a single parent family when we had her in the news agency, and I'm still in touch with her today.
Yeah, I've sort of briefly kept in touch and sort of kept notes on where she's at, because she sort of worked in an industry that could align parallel with what I was doing for a while in cultural heritage and stuff like that. So
yeah,
interesting. Yeah. Well, I mean that kind of finished up that era for all of us, because it wasn't long after that we ended up moving overseas for 5 years. Pretty big thing to pull up roots and move your whole family overseas for a period of time. I mean, what started to drive that, and for you guys to think that could be something that going from a pipe dream to reality is, I guess, as you went through the thought process and started planning that?
I think the fact that we'd planned our lives as to where we were going for up until our retirement age, even though I was only 45 at the time, I think, it seemed we wanted to travel because we'd worked very hard, your mum and I. All of our married life, and it was time to. And with her having come from the Channel Islands, she wanted to go and have a look whilst we could still do it as a family together. And so we decided we'd sell up and head off overseas, not knowing for how long we'd go. Maybe it was 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, or as it turned out, 5.5 years. And you guys, one of the other reasons we stayed overseas so long was it gave you continuity of education. And by the time we were ready to come home and step into our new venture, you guys had finished school, and that was important that you did your high school overseas or in one place, and you came back and you could enter the workforce in Australia.
Yeah, and with a lot of that, it was pretty social over there. You know, a lot of the things that we did and a lot of the engagement that we did, same thing, the social engagement that we had through the tennis club, and we played a lot of tennis, was meeting people on a social level and becoming socialised ourselves.
And low water level was your back fence.
Yeah.
That was a good part about it. And there were no reptiles on the island or anything like that, so you could roam freely on this little island, which was 3.5 miles long and 1.5 miles wide.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a pretty special little place, and a part of our lives where, you know, I think for a period when we got back from the UK, living in the Channel Islands, where Mum had grown up before she moved to Australia, it was a very safe time. I think for probably a couple of years after we got back from doing that, there were parts of me that wished that we'd stayed in Australia, so I would stay more connected with my youth, I guess, as a kid. But then the older I got, I realised how special that time was in a part of making me a part of the person I am socially and with confidence in social groups and meeting new people. It was we're very, very lucky to have that.
Yeah, it was. I felt it was a good experience for you guys, because when we went away in 1991, it was the beginning of peer pressure starting, particularly with the young teenagers, and you guys weren't subjected to that on the island we were on, and you just had a damn good time running around and being kids growing up.
Yeah, I remember really, even in primary school, for me, like the later years of primary school, even it was starting to matter, you know, what kind of shoes you wore. If you wore Adidas or, you know, the Air Jordans were starting to become popular with Michael Jordan going off, and there was a lot of pressure to start wearing, you know, the right shoes and certain brands of clothing. So being removed from that, even though it kind of was over there a little bit, not really to that extent. So we were quite lucky to not have that hanging over us as teens, I guess, which can affect you, later on into your life as well.
Yes, and we've still got friends from over there that we're in touch with through the media at the moment, as it is on your phone
on
and things
socials,
like that, social media, and it's good to still have that contact as well as the contacts we have in Australia, and it was nice to have that experience and broaden your horizons. And I think that for you in particular, it was good for you to go away and see another part of the world and live in another part of the world and be accepted there.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that where the Channel Islands are located so close to the coast of France, even though they're part of Great Britain, you could see the coast of France from where we lived. So it wasn't much to take your passport and jump on a friend's boat for lunch or dinner or something like that. I mean,
I don't think we ever took our passports when we went to France.
I think we talked about it, but yeah.
You left them home and just went across on your mate's boat and had dinner and came back, or stay the weekend there and come back. There was no necessity for passports.
Yeah, but
I mean,
to have that as kids, we didn't know any different because it was kind of the norm. But when you look back at my age, 20 years later, 25 years later, and you're telling people about this, that was pretty extraordinary situations what we had then.
Well, similarly with cars, wasn't it? I mean, where you parked your car, you left your keys in it.
Yeah.
And I remember once we moved house, and the local postman took our mail back to where we were previously, because even though the mail was addressed to our new address, he said they don't live there, they still live down in some other place, and kept on dropping the mail off there for a few months.
I mean, looking back and obviously knowing us now, I mean, how do you feel, how you thought that was going to play out and how it actually did play out? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
It was a good move, because I don't think that we would have been as close living in suburbia in Perth as what we were living on this island, where you could do your sport and all of those sort of things together without having to go kilometres and kilometres and kilometres to do it. We probably wouldn't have been so involved in sport and recreational weekends as what we were over there, and I think that was good. And then coming back into Australia, of course, we had to go through, we'd taken you away from decimal currency to pounds, shillings and pence and metric system with measurements over here, to go backwards to feet and inches. And then when we came back here again, of course, we had to go decimal and metric again.
Yeah.
So you guys probably found that a little bit harder than what we did. But coming back and then moving to Albany, I think took a bit of pressure off us as a family when we came home, because we didn't have to look for somewhere to live, because we had something in the business we were going into. We already had a residence, and you knew some family who were there.
Yeah, that's right. So, because we left Perth to go overseas, and then coming back to Australia, we didn't come back to Perth, but down to a sort of, at that stage, a regional city down in the southern part of WA and Albany,
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, I remember that period because I think I was 16, and at that stage I was into rock music and, the alternative sort of grunge era was going on, And,
Where's Kurt Cobain?
Yeah. Well, that was huge for me.
Yeah.
And I remember it was something that I was just right into. I had, long hair and ripped jeans and listening to pretty loud music all the time. But that was never really something that you had discouraged me from doing either. It was like, that was my thing, and you guys sort of never really...
As you love your kids, zits and all,
Yeah. Well, I would have had a few of them.
And there were some of those in those days.
But, I had this great time, and I remember we were on holidays and we went to Paris, and I was wearing that get-up. I don't think I took those ripped jeans off for about 2 years, and getting around Paris with supermodels and, the incredibly great-looking Parisian people, and here I was walking around, but you guys didn't really seem too phased at all.
And you were getting more looks than the bloody models, if I remember rightly, because you were so set on Kurt Cobain, and you almost had to pay your money to get you to smile in those days.
Yeah, that was just one of those stages, I guess. But it was good. That's one of those things that you always take with you and remember. And I think, looking back, you really appreciate it even more, I think.
As characters, you didn't change with that much underneath, because our normal lifestyle that we had and the relationship we had within our family, as these fads came in and out, it was fine. You just go with them and come back, but it didn't change the person underneath, and your lateral thinking or whatever it may have been at the time went along with the fashion, which is fine. But when that fashion changed, you moved on, and I think as parents, you've got to let your kids do that. You can only advise, because if you do any more than that, you lose them, and you can't afford to lose them, because once you do, it's good night nurse.
Pushed away, I think... and
that's why we've got the relationship we've got now, where I think that when we came back to Australia and there was a little bit more freedom, and remembering that your older brother Simon didn't come back for 12 months after we did, because he was finishing his diploma in dental technology at Southampton Tech.
Yeah.
You guys became more friends than what you did sons in those days, because we did things together. You were getting your licence and all of these sorts of things, and we could sit down around the table, which we did always as a family, and we had conversations together as we have now.
Yeah.
We hit things off each other instead of being dictatorial.
Yeah.
And I think that's good. And of course, now that you're married with a family of your own, I can see some of our traits in your family, because they're the grassroots that you grew up with, and that just flows on. You probably don't realise it so much, but I see a lot of me in you, bits of your mother in you, and it hasn't. It's just seeded there. It hasn't been thrown in there and demanded to be there. It's been a really good growing process.
It's been allowed to happen, yeah.
And I look at us now as good buddies, and that's the way that I think it should be, because we can say whatever we want to say to each other.
Absolutely. And
we talk to the subject, not
yeah,
to the person.
Yeah. And
that way you have good and open discussion, and you don't offend anyone, because you talk to the subject, not degrading the person for having a different thought to what you've got.
Yeah, and I think that also comes back to, like you say, fads coming and going, but you're still that same person underneath, is because you've got that backing and support no matter what. You know, I think if
Very
you're trying
true.
to oppose what we were doing, we may have pushed further away and gone down a not so ideal avenue maybe.
We didn't choose a path for you for a career. You chose your own path for your career.
Yeah.
And we supported you in that. And from you in particular, being when you were very small, you would sit down with a beetle and a centipede and play with it and this sort of stuff. And so you always had that feeling for earthy bits. And we never discouraged that from you. And you pursued that, not to the extent of being green like some of the greens are.
Yeah.
But to the fact that you did care, you had a caring nature, and you still have. And that's showing in your girls.
Yeah.
And we're proud of that as well, because it flows on. And so you look at families as a whole, and you can see bits and pieces of each one of us down the rung flowing on to somebody else in your family. And I think that's nice to have that strain.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I see it in my girls now when we're out. We might go on a walk. There's the beautiful wildflowers up here at the moment with all of the rain that we've had, and we spend time outdoors, and it's just having that appreciation for the wildflowers and just letting things be as well, you know, not picking them and cutting them down, just letting them be there for other people to enjoy, and the beauty in bugs and insects and just having a look at them but then leaving them be. And it's beautiful to see my kids enjoying that and not having to pick them up and make pets out of them, but just letting them play their course out. It's pretty special.
We're proud to see the two girls as well. They're really great kids, and they're pleased to see us, because once again, we don't come in and push ourselves upon them. We let them come to us, which is nice and relaxing. And when it may take half a day because we don't see them every day, because we're so far apart, but they warm to us after we've been here for an hour or two, and then you've got the relationship back on full, and it's them wanting to do it, not us putting ourselves on them and demanding it happen, which makes us so proud of the way that they've been brought up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not always ideal. You know?
No.
Sometimes you're trying to get them ready for school and everything's flat out, and you're just in that really busy life mode. But when we can and do get the chance to have a relaxing time, and I find spending time outdoors is just such a great teacher for myself. They still see me learning, I think, and when the kids see me getting really blown away by something that's happening in nature, I feel they take it on board more than if I'm showing something and I'm telling them and it's amazing. I'm trying to show them and putting, hey, look, this is really great, and I'm trying to tell them it's great. But if I'm there just appreciating it in my own way, they take that on board a lot more.
Yeah, and we live outdoors a lot, and it's good to see the girls when we come up here in the caravan. They love coming outside. We've got little chairs for them. They spend most of their time outside under the awning with us, and they love being in the van, and they can just relax in there. They come out and see Nanny, get her to read a book, get her to make something for them to eat.
Yeah. And
they've got their own way of showing their affection to us, and I'm sure that they're different with all of the other grandparents they have.
Yeah.
Because they've got their own characters, and they react the way that they know that you can react back to them.
Yeah, and they've built their own relationships individually.
Yes, they do. Yeah,
it's really special.
Yeah, it is.
So we'd moved back from the UK back to Australia. Like you say, another big thing for the family to go through. A bit of pressure was eased off because we had the family business to come back and look after. And I found that era of my life was really significant because of the person I was becoming as a teenager. And I was probably a bit, I wouldn't say apprehensive, but definitely nervous in the fact that, I'm coming back to my home country a certain way, long hair and ripped jeans, and loved rock music, and I started falling in love with surfing back then. And I was a bit worried that I hope everyone in Australia, I hope I fit in with what people of my age are doing back in Australia. And yeah, for me it was great because it was where things were kind of at. It kind of seemed like a bit of a global thing. at the time, but it was really nice to come home and feel like I was, where I wanted to be, and I had friends that I had stuff in common with, which was a little bit. I was a little bit nervous coming home, wondering how that would go.
Yeah, I think that once we got back here and you made a couple of friends, and particularly surfing, and with the business that we had, a lot of the young guys used to come out and play their sport at our place. So you got to meet them on a different footing than had you been growing up with them all the time at school.
Yeah.
And you brought something to them because you lived overseas, and they brought something to you because of the fact that they knew Australian conditions. And I think that was very good. And we gave you the rein when you came back to do basically what you wanted to do. You were in your late teens in those days. And with a bit of guidance, that was all that we gave you. And it was interesting. And, of course, you met the love of your life within a few months of coming back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a good move. I know you pushed me. I wouldn't say you pushed me, but you definitely advised to sort of go to high school. I think when I finished in the UK, I'd finished year 11, which
mainly
is,
to meet
which is
people.
high school. Yeah, mainly to meet people. Yeah. And there was no pressure to for me to really push myself academically. I was finding my own way in the world, and I was probably leaning towards a bit more travel. I guess that might have been in my blood from our time overseas. And
well, you graduated from high school overseas, so you didn't have to graduate here anymore. Really,
yeah,
did you?
that's
So
right.
it was a bit of a doddle that year.
Yeah. But it was nice because you said, if anything, it's a great place to meet people, and it was probably the best thing I could have done at that stage, as well as join a few sporting clubs as well, which was really good. And I think because we moved back to the country rather than moving to the city, I fell in love with my homeland again because I had the time to get back outdoors. I was surfing and had 4-wheel drive, so I was always off on an adventure on the weekend, going and doing something, which again was just something I'm so grateful for.
Yeah, that was good. And I think that working outside as well was good for you because it was where you had always had a tendency to be outside looking after nature.
Yeah.
And you got your career out of there and moved on. And you made other choices after that. And, of course, all we can do is wish you the best in them. And when they do come along, we can't say this is what you've got to do, you've got to stay at it. And I wouldn't have liked to have been a father like that.
Yeah.
I think it was easy to say, yeah, well, if that's what you want to do and you were good at it, encourage that.
Yeah.
Because you can always change from one foot to the other as you go through life.
Yeah, well, because we had the family business with the golf course, and that sort of, I went down the path of horticulture and greenkeeping, which I did enjoy. And I remember having that conversation because I don't think it took me very long to realise that I wanted to travel around Australia and do some trips up north in my 4-wheel drive and that. And I was lucky that I'd met Renee at this stage, and she was that way inclined as well because of her family had been doing a lot of travelling as well. So, and I just remember you saying, look, if you're going to go, happy for you to do that, not a problem. Might just be a good idea to maybe get a 12-month traineeship under your belt so you got something to travel with, which I did.
Yep.
And that kind of led to me doing my full apprenticeship, I think, because I enjoyed it that much. So probably put the trip off a couple of years, but it just meant I had a bit more of a qualification under my belt to travel with, which I used, and it was good.
And it suited you in Queensland, didn't it? You got jobs in the turf industry over in Queensland, and then of course when you went to Darwin, I think you worked for Channel Electricity, didn't you?
Yeah, I worked for Power and Water Corp. Yeah, I was just as a TA, and that was good because
it's a break.
Yeah, and we learnt through that, and then working in Queensland again to do a few other trades, and they had applications that suited me in life as well. So I worked from anything from a greenkeeping to a plasterer to a tour guide on full quad bike tours and stuff like that. So
that's what you do when you're young and got plenty of energy, isn't it?
That's
change your job so long as you're enjoying life.
Yeah,
and the more you do at that point in time, the more diversified your occupations can be. The more chance you've got of picking up a job somewhere.
Yeah,
I think that's life. Generally, a lot of people can't adapt from one thing to another, but you can certainly do that, and that's because you took life in your own hands to have a crack.
Yeah, and to live,
to
experience that stuff. I think that
and to experience hardship as well.
Yeah, which we...
Because you go through a bit of that.
Yeah, we did. I remember travelling. Well, I think we were in Darwin and I might have nearly missed a couple of car repayments. I was still paying my car off, but luckily you guys managed to help us out to get to the next paycheck with that one. But, yeah, look, we love the fact that travelling kept it pretty simple and it was pretty close to the basics and small income, but also a pretty easy way of life as well, pretty affordable and simple that didn't require a lot of high-end budgets to support that way of living back then, which just suited us as well.
That's true enough, yeah. It's good, and it was good for you both to get the travel the way that you wanted to do it on a budget because you knew how to do that. And as you get older, you'll want a few more comforts and you won't do it the same way.
Well, I mean, on that as well, because we were travelling and we didn't have a time frame on that, but I mean, you had the business at home and I had a certificate in horticulture. I mean, obviously you would have been thinking of, and I know it was a big thing for you and we talked about the family business and maybe us taking it over one day when you thought, well, maybe there might come a day where the guys don't want to take the business over. The guys might go down a different avenue and that might not happen. I guess as a parent, you want to look out for your kids and make their lives a bit easier in leaving them something. But, I mean, where was that thought process for you?
We were elastic enough to be prepared for that. And as it turned out, when you boys didn't want to take it over, we reconsidered. We had to change direction with our life. And that's when 18 years ago, we bought Ragamuffins Childcare Centre because we needed another string to our bow.
Yeah.
Because we didn't want the continuity to go on where we were. And so that was another change in our life, which we don't regret. And your mum has turned that into a really, really good business. And that was because we needed to continue working and we enjoyed working for ourselves. And it's going to provide us with a lifestyle that we can enjoy for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. And, the way that things go, the golf course kind of disbanded and didn't end up being a long-term thing, which, for me, looking back, and even at that time with us travelling, I mean, you lived and worked out there full-time, so it was very rare that we would get you off the property or even get you to ourselves because there was always customers and people there. So,
well, it was dawn to dark 7 days a week for 20 years.
Yeah.
And even in between times, I was offered work off the farm when we had you guys out there greenkeeping off the golf course, and I enjoyed those 3 years with Timber Corp and then CBH another 3 years, and they were avenues that I never ever contemplated in my life. But you've got to take that when it comes up, because when we had the golf course staffed with you and the greenkeepers there was nothing for me to do. Yeah, and so I was bored. And I needed to get off there to do something. Otherwise, I was only going to be in your way because you had the daily routine totally under control, and there was no point in the extra bod being there, cramping everyone's style. So the thing for me to do was get off, which I did, and I managed 6,000 hectares of tree farms for a couple of years.
Yeah,
and then CBH for 3 years. Went down there for 6 weeks in the summer period and finished up being casual there. But they were good avenues because you need to keep your brain active.
Yeah.
So I was doing the weekends at the golf course and these other jobs as well, and they just all fitted in together until we bought the childcare centre, which gave your mother something to do because then I went back to the golf course.
Yeah.
And and all in all the way through, what we've done as a family has always been discussed. You've known everything that we were doing.
Yeah.
And we've always had you guys in it, even to the point where I think Renee knows as much about what went on as you and I do.
Yeah, I mean,
which is good. And her living with us was fantastic for that 5 years.
Yeah.
When she was there. And I think that was another good decision we made.
Yeah.
When her parents decided to travel, and she was twixt and between as to where to live at her age, and our discussions with you and her for her to come and live under our roof was great, and I think that's a big decision that any family has to make, to have someone else, particularly, at that age, mid to late teens. We only ever had 2 boys, and all of a sudden we got a 17-year-old girl in our family, and we never had a problem with it. It was lovely.
Yeah, it was good.
It was good.
Yeah, it's just for the fact of discussing it as humans and as people, I think made it work better than what it probably could have been.
Lots better, because it would have been difficult for her to have lived in town with people that she probably had to ditch in with and didn't have the security.
Yeah.
And with you, the hours that you work as a greenkeeper early in the morning, things like that, doesn't make it easier for her to cohabit unless you're cohabiting under the one roof. Yeah. And it worked for everybody. It was a win-win situation.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah. And that gave us the chance to prep and get ready to travel.
For your travel, yeah.
Which was great. And then we sort of travelled, and towards the end, I think we both got careers in like mining exploration and stuff like that.
Yep.
Which was good, because this was probably the first time where you would have seen us have a go at making some and saving some decent money.
Well, look at the time we spent at McPhee Creek at 53 degrees having Christmas lunch between Marble Bar and Nullagine.
Yeah, I mean, that's an experience.
For a start, yeah.
That's totally different. And, we enjoyed that era. Towards the end, it was an industry that I walked away from, probably not in the best of shape, which we've spoken about in the past. But, we made a lot of money in that period, and we enjoyed ourselves. We travelled and we did all the things that people do in their 20s, which
yes,
I'm sure a lot of parents might have been worried with us, partying and enjoying ourselves. But, it never got out of control. And
you've got to do those things.
Yeah.
Because you did a lot of travelling on a shoestring as well.
Yeah, that's right.
So when you did save and you had the money and you did your trip to South America and those places and learnt to do your diving, you spent the money on yourself. So it was an investment in yourselves, basically. It wasn't a waste of money, even though we probably thought so at the time. But you got over that.
Yeah, I mean, it must be hard having those conversations, and I know I've had them with some of the other parents in the family as well, is that they might see times and they think, oh, geez, even if we did have concerns, like how would we go about raising those sort of issues? But I mean, it's just open and honest conversation, which is why it works and why it's been so good.
You learn by your mistakes if they were mistakes, and you're wiser for it.
Yeah,
and we've all done it.
Yeah,
everyone has done it. It's just nice to be able to do it and not have someone throwing it up in your face.
Yeah,
because I mean, the fact that you spent the money on yourself, look what it's done for you. Yeah, made you better people, and you appreciate what's going around now. I'm sure.
Yeah, and you do. I mean, for me, there's a lot of things you don't get as the kids, what your parents are doing. I mean, you don't get a lot of the things until you become a parent yourself.
You don't. That's right.
And you take it for granted. And when you look back, you're like so glad that it was handled in a good way, because it would be so easy to react emotionally and instantly. And I don't have recollections of that happening too often.
And then if you had run off the rails, how do you get back onto them? That's the hard part. And you guys didn't run off the rails, nor with your now wife. You kept a straight bat. You had your good time, and you've profited from it because you've grown as people together. Yeah. And this is what makes a family unit a lot closer, is by the fact of being able to be honest with each other, enjoy each other's life, trust each other, and go for it.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
It's pretty rad.
And be mates.
Yeah. I mean, I remember periods where, I was working in Queensland on and off, and we would catch up quite often and go to the cricket. And they're always memories that I'll cherish, because I might fly in from Queensland. Renee may have been working somewhere else at that time where we weren't catching up on our breaks. And I'd call you and say, hey, the cricket's on. Let's go and watch a couple of days of the test match. So you'd drive up from Albany, we'd stay in Perth and go and watch a few days of, whoever Australia was playing.
We've done that, haven't we?
Yeah, and that was great, because
terrific.
It's just an example of us. We'd catch up, we'd watch the game, maybe have a couple of beers, and Yeah. We'd start off.
Yeah.
But, there was never that uncomfortable issue of having to fill the void with talking sometimes. We could sit there for hours and not talk and just be happy in each other's company,
That's
even though we
right.
probably hadn't seen each other for maybe 6 to 12 months. So
If you remember that photo I had taken with Chris Gale and everyone said stand up, and I was on the top step and he was still taller than me.
Steps up, yeah. So I mean, those relationships over time, they just don't seem to fall away, and knowing that guidance is there if you want it, if you want to ask for it, but it's not overstepping the mark and jumping in where it's not welcomed and adding that.
It's got to be an open door so that you can feel relaxed enough to say, what do you think, or can I?
Yeah.
And our door will never be shut to you to do that. And I think that's great, the fact that we can, if something's bothering you or you need something and you say, can we, can I, can you?
Yeah.
Our ears are always open and we can make a decision by chatting about it.
Yeah, totally.
And normally it self-resolves or resolves between the four of us, whoever you're talking to, by having this open relationship and more friendship than the father and son anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's where I was leading to in the next part of the conversation. It's just perfect sort of segue, because once we're now parents ourselves, we've got 2 little girls, another one on the way, so exciting times for you guys having more grandkids. You've got 2 grandsons as well.
That's right, we have,
which is great.
And they're good guys.
Yeah.
And they're very much in our mould, the 2 boys.
2 boys, yeah.
And they're good. They've followed sport, which is always a good thing, which keeps them healthy and out in the community.
Yeah.
And we see them pretty often. And they're basically the age that you were when we took you overseas.
That's right.
11 and 14 or something.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And even, we don't see them a lot living where we live, and we're a long way away, and we might get to Albany once every couple of years, but even watching our girls who are younger, probably half the age of the boys, but when they catch up you can see those similarities, how it's branched off, and they've got the similar sense of humour and behaviours, and they almost they know that they're related and they're comfortable and they're very similar in how they get along.
They do know that. It's
pretty cool.
Uncanny, isn't it, when they don't see each other so much, but they recognise straight away.
There's traits there.
There are traits there.
Yeah.
And the boys loved it when they came down at Christmas time, of course, and so did the girls, and so did we.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a pretty special time.
It was really, really special.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, like I said, us becoming parents, we start to grow an awareness of what you go through in life, the decisions that you start making for your family. And, I'll start comparing the decisions I'm making to the decisions that you and Mum made, and it gives you an appreciation of, the hows and whys of the things that life throw at you, and the stress that you can be under as a family and as parents, and what led your decisions. I mean, it's full credit to how you guys raised us as kids, and it takes a big thing to pull up your family and go and live overseas for 5 years as well, and come home fairly seamlessly.
Well, I hope that you got as much out of being overseas as what we got out of taking you overseas, because we felt it was the right time then, because of peer pressure and things like that. The other thing that I think was really opportune was that you went to a small school, and your teachers were almost your mates. I mean, I can remember Matt Stubbs.
Yeah.
You guys used to play cricket in the same team as him as
our science teacher. Yeah.
As your science teacher for the island.
Yeah. And
so there was no restrictions of age stopping you competing if you were good enough.
Yeah.
And those influences, to be able to see the teachers out of school hours as a member of the team with you, broke down a lot of barriers of the having to call someone sir or mister.
Yeah.
Whereas you call him Mr. in the schoolyard, and Matt in the cricket team.
That's right. I think I remember that was one of the first things he said to me. He says, "We're not at school now. You can call me Matt in the cricket side." So.
And I think that's fantastic. Yeah, and you guys learned a lot from that. And I think the other thing that probably was good was when we used to be able to go across to Guernsey on the fishing boats.
Yeah.
And stay over there for the night to have a Chinese meal and come back the following day on the tide and things like that. Well, you wouldn't have got those experiences had you stayed in Australia.
Yeah.
And similarly, skipping across to France in 20 minutes to Gorey or Cherbourg to have a lobster meal or a crab meal.
Genuine.
And come
French
back
fries.
before dark at midnight.
Yeah.
You know, on the tide. And they were really good times that you never had those opportunities in Australia.
Yeah.
And they may sound small, but I think they were good, and the fact that we did it all together was another thing, because you could take the kids into the restaurants over there, and there was much more open dining and things like that in France in particular. You know, you could drink pina coladas at the Coca Cabana, couldn't you, when you were 15 years of age with Sally?
Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah. Well, you know, we were included. We had so much time to explore as kids. And then we had these incredible social situations where the families would get together to play cricket or tennis, but we were included with the adults as peers. We weren't pushed aside and kept as kids. We played tennis with the adults. We played cricket with the adults. We weren't put aside and go, well, you guys go and sit down and have dinner over there, and the adults are going to talk over here. I mean, I remember being included in conversation and, you know, joke and storytelling. I mean, we were always included in that, and I think that did huge things for my confidence, being accepted in social situations and being in social situations now and having a comfort level.
I'm sure it
others.
did, because I can remember Nellie Gray's when you were sitting on the stool there and the guys were paying you to tell them jokes, and you were 12 years of age or something, and these guys are brazen fishermen from fishing for crabs in the channel, and they're having a beer, and we're trying to send you home to go to school tomorrow, and these fellas are dragging you back and giving you money to tell them another joke.
Well, yeah.
And that was just the way that life was on the island, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was a great little spot for that.
Very special, yeah. So jumping through to now, we've covered some pretty good stuff there across, you know, a lot of decisions and a lot of things you've seen us achieve through our lives as parents and workers and everything else. Now, here we are sitting up in our hometown, or my hometown now, not being so close to you guys, but, you know, we found our home, and it's a shame we don't get to see you guys every day, but the time we do spend together is pretty special. And yeah, it's great when we do get to catch up, even though it's not probably as often as what we would like, but, you know, you guys still allow us to do that.
Yeah, well, we enjoy coming up here, and sometimes it's good to be apart as much as it's good to be close, because we don't want to have an overpowering influence on your life, or be saying, oh, I wouldn't do that if I was you, or this, that and the other. It's a good relationship as it is, because the fact that you guys can make your own decisions, and if there's something that's worrying you, we're close enough to be able to talk to.
Yeah, just a phone call away.
Just a phone call away and things like that. And we like coming up here. There are some things that you can't get around to doing, and we've done a few things here, and little bits and pieces that help you out.
Yeah.
Which I think all parents should do, and only want recognition for it, by saying thanks. That's all that you want. You don't want your kids to be kowtowing to you, or you saying, oh, we did this or we did that. There's none of that. We all hop in and do it together and enjoy it. That's what life's about. That's why we keep coming up here, and that's why we enjoy, when we come out here, being able to spend quality time and do things with you guys that maybe you guys don't do together when we're not here.
Yeah.
Like going out for lunch and things like that you can't afford to do. And I don't mean financially afford to do, but time doesn't let you do it unless someone's here to help you pick up the kids from school or look after them and bits and pieces like that. And we enjoy doing that. And we know that you enjoy us doing it. We don't come up here to take over and tell you how to run your kids or run your family or those things.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Because I'd be expected to be thrown out the bloody door if that happened. And I'm sure I would be.
Tow your caravan off the front verge.
Yeah,
and off
get
you
it
go.
out. Yeah, don't bring those double Gs up here.
But it's good because you guys not being in the house as well, you've got your bit of own space out there, and
you need your time with your kids, and we appreciate that. That's why we spend a lot of time outside. And if you want us to come inside, you come and get us.
Yeah,
because we don't want to come in here and interfere with your normal day. We want our visit here to be special for particularly your kids.
Yeah, which I think it is.
Because they know that they can come in and out of our caravan, as you see, with the number of times that they shower in our caravan and not inside the house when we're here, because it's novel to them.
Yeah.
And they enjoy it, and we want them to enjoy that, and we want them to remember us for the good things we do, the good times we have together.
Yeah.
Because there shouldn't be any bad times anymore.
No, that's right.
And we're at the stage where your mum and I are pretty relaxed with life, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
And we're fit enough, and that's a good thing about it, that we've got good family genes, both on your mum's side and my side, and we're still fit and able to do things. And I look around and see these poor buggers my age or younger who are really pushing what's name uphill without a paddle.
Yeah.
And I suppose one of the major things that has kept, or that I'm still enjoying good health, is the fact that I gave up smoking.
Yeah.
Back in 1981, it's the only thing I've ever done for the Labor government. They had a non-smoking day and I signed the pledge not to smoke, and I haven't had a fag since. But I went from, because you could smoke in your office in those days, I went from nearly 80 cigarettes a day to nothing. Yeah. And that's a huge commitment to make, and I haven't missed it, but I wouldn't be here today if my lungs were still full of nicotine.
Yeah.
And the reason I gave away smoking, and I probably haven't told you this before, is when we were in Mandurah, I'd come home from work. You were 2, Simon was 4, and I'd get out of the car, having been in a smoky office all day, open up the front door. You guys had come to see me at the front door of the house. One nose in my left shoulder, one nose in my right shoulder. What's it full of? Cigarette smoke and nicotine. Yeah. And that's when I decided I'm not going to subject my kids to this anymore, and I cold turkeyed. And I haven't had a cigarette from that day on. That's probably one of the biggest decisions I had to make, and it's a mental decision, and I have not missed a cigarette at all. I just made my mind up I'm not going to subject my kids to the smell of that every time I come home from work.
Yeah, it's a pretty good driver having that cause.
Yeah.
And I know you see a lot of people doing it now, and it was a driver for me to get fit and to lose the weight and be active, because that driver was to be active for my kids as well.
Yeah.
I remember playing tennis with you and, friends of ours and family friends, and you guys were, you guys were in your 40s, and we were teenagers and we were running around as hard as each other.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely grateful for that lesson, that now I've got energy to chase the kids around all day, and hopefully for years to come as well.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed the time in Alderney because I became a Wimbledon qualified tennis coach when we were over there.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And we had a good time there, and I think that at that time when they just restarting the tennis club, the fact that I was doing coaching and trying to get some of the island kids into tennis as well is probably the reason that the tennis club is still going today. Part of one of the reasons why.
Yeah, well, I mean, we went back just before we had kids, and there was a lot of, when we lived there and in the UK, tennis was, and I think it might still be, it's a bit more of an upper class sport.
Yes.
Now, when we went back 6 or 7 years ago, maybe a bit longer, nearly everyone was playing tennis. Even the kids that, soccer was kind of for the normal kids that went to the schools on the island, and tennis was kind of only really for the kids that went to boarding school on the mainland. Everyone played tennis now.
They had a fundraiser there a couple of weeks ago, and I think they raised nearly 1,500 quid.
That's incredible.
In the afternoon.
Yeah.
So it's still strong and going well, isn't it?
Yeah.
If that's the case.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that was they were good years, and we had a bit of fun there as well.
Yeah.
19 pubs on the island and 1,500 people. Didn't have to walk far between drinks.
If you made it.
Yeah.
If you made it the whole way.
Yes. And you'd ride your bike home because you were too drunk to walk.
Yeah. If it was downhill.
Yeah, it was as well.
Hey, I reckon we've had a pretty good go at it this time round.
I think so, yeah.
I think the main thing I was hoping to cover was just the fact that I think for me was just being aware of the decisions you make as an adult and as a parent, and taking into mind what you've learnt from your parents for better or for worse. But it's one of those things that I think, and it must be something that there's so many things I got once I was a parent. It's like, oh, I get it now. And it must be hard for you to look.
You never stop learning, as.
Right, yeah. But then to think, you'll get it one day, but not having to say, just we've got to let them work it out. And then when you see us start to get it as we sort of get into our mid-30s into parenthood, start to understand things, I mean, that must be pretty good as a parent as well to witness that.
I feel proud of the fact that you can ring me up and ask me a question for my advice.
Yeah.
Some parents don't get that respect from their children. Some children don't ring their parents because they don't want their advice, and it's nice to be respected by your children enough for them to ring you and say, can you tell me what I can do, or can you help me out here?
Help me out, yeah.
Yeah, not just run up past you.
Yeah.
And that is a compliment to a mother and a father for their children at any age to ring them up and ask them for a bit of advice.
Yeah.
Or even just a chat, because you're worried about something. You can get it off your chest and know that you're not going to get shouted down or called an idiot because,
or overridden, yeah.
Because you don't agree with the same thing or principles as we do. And
yeah.
And because you've had a good open relationship all your life, your thoughts and ideas aren't radical to us.
Yeah.
Whereas had we not had a communication line all of our lives from very young age all the way through, people grow away from each other and their thoughts change. And sense and sensibility goes out the window, and all of a sudden the family's not talking to each other.
Yeah, and you don't know each other.
And you don't know each other at all, and you don't respect each other, and that certainly hasn't happened with us.
Yeah, and I'm grateful for that, because
So are we.
Now we're raising 2 young girls.
Yep.
And it's terrifying to think of being pushed away when they grow older, as they grow older. And I think it's something that you have to keep working at. You have to
Never
stay
stop working.
close. You don't push each other away, and always staying close, like you've said. I mean, things are making sense in my head as we've been talking. So they're things that I need to keep working at as a parent, to stay close with my kids as they get older. And there's a lot of distractions these days, and it's easy to be in the same house but be disconnected with mobile devices and
Must be horrible.
social media and stuff like that. But
And no matter how tough you think you are on your kids, so long as they know that you love them,
yeah,
they can put up and they will appreciate the advice you're trying to give them.
yeah,
And they should accept it if you are reasonable about it all, because they don't know right from wrong when they start.
yeah,
They don't know black from white when they start. So long as we have an ear for them and we can say, well, look, I wouldn't do that, I think you should do this, or step back and have a look at it again tomorrow, instead of having that banal attack like when you have a debate.
yeah,
Don't attack the personality of the person, attack the subject.
yeah,
And you can have a difference there, but you still respect each other, even though you have a difference of opinion.
yeah,
But once you lose respect or say to someone, oh, you're a bloody idiot for thinking like that,
yeah,
there's the first line of communication broken.
yeah.
Because
It's
no one
straight
likes being decried.
Yeah. And it's something I've seen. I think one of the kids' favourite TV shows, I love Bluey.
Yep.
And I just love that show, because when I think the mum was talking to the kids one day, and she said, something about maybe being silly. And she said, oh, you called me silly. She says, no, I didn't say you were silly. I said, you're being silly. And there's a difference. And
There is.
That just echoes exactly what you're saying. It's not labelling them as the comment that they've just made. You're not labelling for them for that comment, but you're just saying, yeah,
don't do a silly thing.
Yeah, you can be certain things at certain times, but it's not who you are.
Yeah,
there's different times for that. That's a pretty cool way of looking at a good perspective.
As my mother always said, never stick your finger where you wouldn't stick your head.
That's right.
And still true today.
That's right. Well, yeah.
Poor old Rube.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty good gem to wrap it up on.
Yeah.
I know we can talk lots more, and we might do another day, but it's been great to sit down and chat with your dad. We always have pretty good catch-ups when we do, but it's really nice to look across at each other and have a good, good chat.
We're not peeing in each other's pocket. We're being honest.
That's right.
And that's what I like about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, giving us the freedom to be who we are, whether or not it's exactly in your image or what you would have done at my age or what you would still do now compared to what you think I should be doing, it's great the fact that whatever it is, you've let me do it and you've given us that love and support the whole way. It's been incredible. So
we've never been disappointed with the decisions you've made. We've probably been shocked at a couple, to a little bit, but not to the point whereby you don't want to be somewhere anymore.
Yeah.
No point in being there.
Yeah.
You get out because before it causes you too much damage. Yeah. And you made that tough decision and you went through tough times after it, but you came out the other side shining.
Yeah.
And that's what we appreciate is the guts that you've got. You made that tough decision. Your lovely wife went through it with you, fully supported you. You knew she was going to do that, and that's why you're all still together and having another bub.
Yeah, that's right.
Not to celebrate that decision, but you're still together.
Yeah. But, I mean, the underlying thing I'm picking up in the conversation is that as long as you've got that love and support underneath, the decision-making that goes on above all of that is it's all going to be okay, because there's that underlying love the whole way.
Well, I said to Anne the other night, I can see a difference in a lot of the girls up here, more so than you blokes, because the girls have gone from being beautiful, vivacious, young things to good-looking, coming-up middle-aged girls.
Yeah.
They have.
Yeah.
And this is across the board, most of your friends.
Yeah. I think
I can only say most of your friends because I haven't seen them all this trip.
Yeah.
But it's amazing the difference in them over that couple of year period, how they have blossomed into young middle-aged women.
Yeah. It's a transition that I find is hard as women become mothers because they go from a whole different set of pressures they were going through as teens and 20-year-olds to becoming mothers. Mm. And I think they probably hit that transition earlier than what guys do because I find we tend to go through it as we get into probably our 30s and 40s where we're almost creating a new identity, finding a new direction once we've become dads, and we've got to focus our energy onto how we're going to carry on career-wise and goal-wise as to what we're going to do next in life, with raising our kids and still fulfilling ourselves, but also being good role models as well. So,
and I'm not too old not to notice that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But it's good. It's I think it comes out in us, and whether we know it or not, those behaviours are there. A lot of behaviours get passed on that you can learn from, good or bad. There's still lessons there. But when you look at your kids and you're seeing how they're growing into these young people, you know that there's good behaviours getting passed down that I went through as well.
And similarly, when I have a look at you guys, I can see that the way your children are being brought up resembles a lot of the ways that you reacted, the way that we brought you up.
Yeah.
And particularly in our boys in Albany, you can see that. And Simon's done a good job with them.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Those boys are respectful. They're both handsome, and not that your girls aren't gorgeous, but the way that they act and behave and participate in sport are the things that I could see in you guys, and it's coming out in them. So somewhere along the line, all the way down the line, something good's happened.
That's been good, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, I know we definitely appreciate it. And now as I have grown into an adult and have my own family, it definitely gives me the ability to look back and appreciate those things and take stock and put them into practice consciously, but I'm sure there's some really cool things subconsciously that I'm doing right as well, because it definitely shines out in them.
And I don't think that I have an old attitude towards life.
Yeah.
And I don't think that to my family I'm a grumpy old man.
Yeah.
Because I still do things.
Yeah.
And I still want to be involved in doing things and do them with a smile on my face. Strange as it may seem.
Yeah.
But I don't see, and I think the fact of having the relationship with family right the way down is what keeps older people young.
Absolutely.
Because there are lots of people who couldn't tow a caravan 1,600 kilometres in 2 days and get here and not have to sleep for 3 weeks. And that, once again, is probably in our genes.
Yeah, and you've got a good reason for it.
And we're looking forward to coming up here.
You've got your grandchild.
And doing what we're doing. Yeah, we do.
All right.
No, that's fantastic.
I think if you might let me, I might take you out for lunch to say thanks for coming on and just thanks in general.
Why break the habit of a lifetime?
Yeah, that's it.
We'll all go out to lunch, eh?
Yeah.
Girls at school?
Let's wrap it up.
Let's do it.
And go have some lunch. Thanks, Dad, for coming on. Thanks for everything growing up. I mean, I wouldn't be the person I am now as a man and a son and a parent without the love and support from you and Mum, and the experiences that you decided to make for our family, and putting us in different parts of the world, different parts of the country. It's rubbed off, and I just couldn't be more grateful for the things you've done for me and my family as well. So,
well, thank you, Az, and this has been a totally new experience for me.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed it, and I've gone into it cold, not knowing what it was going to be, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope that you get what you want out of it for your podcast, and I hope that your fans who follow your pod get something out of it too.
Yeah, me too. I hope that the message I'm trying to portray comes across not just from me but from my guests as well, and I consider myself incredibly lucky to be able to do this and interview the amazing people that I have so far. I'm definitely enjoying it. Family first. Absolutely. And family is being Australian as well. Yeah. So awesome. Your immediate family comes first. Yeah. It does for you. It does for us. Yeah. Awesome. And I've loved it. Yeah. It's been great. It's been great having you here. It's been great having you on the show. I mean, there's just everything that I wanted to highlight has come out, and it's been good. So I hope there's stuff in there for people as well as they navigate their own way through the universe. All right, that's fantastic. Awesome. And your mother is doing university study at 68 years of age. Yeah. And loving it. Yeah, and she's doing loving it and enrolled in it. Yeah, she's done very well. She's a great lady. And too. That's because we had to have teachers in the childcare centre, and you can't get teachers. And so she's enrolled in the University of New England in New South Wales, I think it is. Yeah. And doing it online. Yeah. And doing well. It's good. So you're never too old to learn. Up here on holidays. It's great. It's impressive. Yeah. I love her too. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Mate. Thanks, Dad. Cheers. Okay. Well, there you go. Another one down and recorded. What did you think? Did you enjoy hearing a bit more about my backstory or the parenting sort of tips that my dad had through there, even as we spoke about, looking at each other as friends and equals compared to father and son. And, I look at a lot of my life decisions compared to what my parents did as they raised me. And I think you'll find as you become a parent, you get a bit more of an understanding of how tough life can be at stages, and maybe a bit more forgiving for some of the decisions and the things you may have disagreed with when you were younger. So some cool stuff there, as well as a bit of history into a bit more of my upbringing as well. I hope you guys got a bit out of that one and take some of those things on board maybe as you travel down the path of parenthood. But yeah, great to have you on board again. Really appreciate everyone that listens. I've been looking at a few of my stats, and it's great to see I'm getting some people listening to every episode. in Australia and overseas, it's much appreciated. Thanks very much, guys. It definitely helps keep me going on this track that I am enjoying. So thanks to everyone wherever you are for listening. It's really much appreciated. It's great to have you all on board. I hope you are enjoying and listening. Other than that, it's been great, obviously, to have you again. If you have tuned in for the first time, I hope you've enjoyed the show and you keep listening. Let me know your thoughts. Please feel free, anyone, to get in touch. Best place for that's probably on my Instagram account at the Inner Expeditions Podcast. So drop me a DM or just comment on any of the episodes that you listen to and let me know what you like, if you've enjoyed them, or what you do and don't like. I'm more than happy to hear everyone's feedback. Sling me a question if you want to know any more about me or anything you want to talk about in general. I'm always happy to help out and to speak to people for anything that they feel like they might need. So please feel free to do that. Otherwise, I'm going to leave you with a really cool quote that I've just heard it's from a great young ultra runner named Zach Miller. He's been around for a little while now, but the quote is to say, you don't have to be at your best to give your best. So I'm going to leave you with that one, guys. Thanks very much. See you next time. Bye.